This will be a very general response to Vogter. There's no way I can keep up with this guy point by point in all of his videos. He goes too fast, he just asserts things, leaving issues in the dust, and makes too many videos. And he gets so many ratings for his terrible videos. He doesn't take any time to think anything out, he just lets the garbage flow in a stream of consciousness. But I will respond to some general assertions about socialness he made at various times, and this assertion that statism makes society more social. This idea is just so weird. The surface level evidence points in completely the opposite direction, and yet statists feel so confident in saying this without ever really thinking about it. I love his intro. Born to be wild as I parrot completely standard positions and institutional talking points about social democracy. First off, Vogter likes to say that humans are social animals, therefore the state must force people to be social. Stupid. If humans are social, the state doesn't need to force it. In fact, that's what the anarchists depend on in their, in my opinion, faulty belief that a stateless society will default to high levels of collectivism. And in fact, that's actually what I depend on in a stateless welfare system that could deal with poor people in a stateless society. Of course, there would be less poor people in a stateless society. Things are much cheaper, especially the critical goods like medical services are much cheaper in the absence of state intervention in all those industries. And so, well, I have videos about that. Second off, Vogter asserts that people should use advances in productivity to be more social, not to buy more stuff. Now, first off, this is something I and just about everyone agrees with. But so what? What do you know? Maybe they don't like people. Maybe someone doesn't like being around people. And being at work, provides them solace in isolation. Or maybe their work is the most social place to be. And that it's great to be there because they get to be social and productive, which earns them money at the same time. You don't know. It's, this plan you have, it's just your opinion. And you're trying to centrally plan people's social lives. You go way beyond the old Soviets who just wanted to control the factories. Has mandatory public schools made people more social? No, just the opposite. Again, Vogter, this is just you playing God, trying to centrally plan the order in your image. Advocates of freedom support no central plan, allowing each element to play off of each other in a bottom-up emergent order that functions as if directed by a blind watchmaker, invisible hand. But anyway, one thing a more free market in the U.S. did was require people to be more social. A classic example of this is the fraternal societies that I talked about earlier, which in addition to various other activities also provided a welfare net. Same with the churches. The churches functioned this way as well. Not only did you have Mass on Sunday, but this church was a center of various other activities. So when you moved into an area, where's the church? With the state having taken over welfare, there is no need for these institutions. And with state intervention in the medical industry causing the price of medical services to increase many times over, this makes the charity requirement higher than the market can meet. And so the natural socialism of man was short-circuited by state intervention at both ends. Less people are working in the U.S. than before, and this is a result of hiring restrictions, that is demanding workers' comp and various other benefit packages, and minimum wage. Now, with minimum wage, obviously people don't live off of a below minimum wage job today. But that's how younger people with no skills get started, and that they develop their skills working these below minimum wage jobs. That's how they get in. You set the ladder, the bottom rung on the ladder pretty low so more people can start climbing. So there's another example of how increased state control decreases the socialness of society. Then Vogter talks about people in Afghanistan having hard times, and I agree. Imagine if states weren't taking up to half of all the resources in the economy. Although, saying this, I have to make the case that on a total market, the market analogs of all these state services would actually be cheaper. But just go along with the gag for here, please. Assuming that we have so much more to give, right, we could easily maintain our current standard of living. And without retarded patents and process controls, things would become cheaper. And so there would be more to give there. And further, realize that a stateless society has no fear of immigrants. Because the immigrants, they can't use democracy. There is no democracy. They can't use democracy to vote themselves your wealth and your income and your stuff. So there is no reason to fear them. They can't vote. Nobody can vote. There's no state. And so you don't get these voting wars, and so you don't have to worry about Mexicans coming in and voting to raise your taxes so they can get stuff from you. Right? They can only come to work and trade, not to co-opt the guns of the state to mug you. Now, perhaps a full abolition of the state is too extreme at this point, but empirically, back when the U.S. had freer markets, people were more social because they had to be, and the state was not crowding it out. And we could say that anarcho-socialism is reactionary in a sense, at least partially reactionary. When we look at a firm, what does a firm do? They take resources from society, land, labor, and capital, and turn that into something. Society then determines the value of this product. If society determines the product to be more valuable than the resources taken, the firm will be rewarded with a profit. If society determines it to be less valuable, what is produced, than the resources taken in, then the firm is punished with a loss for wasting society's resources. But of course, even though the firm transformed resources in a way that benefits society, the firm doesn't get all of the surplus value. Part of it goes to the firm, right, and that's the profit, and part of it goes to you, which is called consumer surplus. In your subjective valuation, that the product you bought is worth more than the resources that you exchanged for it. That's why you bought it. And we're assuming that this is generally true, of course. Sometimes people buy something and they wish they didn't buy it, and sometimes people buy something and it ends up being much more valuable than they even thought it would be. So, but generally speaking, we're talking, there is consumer surplus. And the resources exchanged for products is proxied by currency. When you see a vendor at a mall, they smile much more than they would if they weren't a vendor. And often in place you don't smile, get kind of berated. Smile, be nice to the customer. Right? They are told to smile and treat the customers nicely because they want the customer to buy what they're selling. Because while they can advertise and even be a little bit manipulative in their advertising, at the end of the day the customer has to choose to buy. What if you don't want to sell something to someone? What if you just want to use force to take some resources from them, like a barbarian? You don't want to trade with them. You don't want to engage in a transaction that creates producer and consumer surplus. You just want to take stuff from them. You want to smash and grab. Well, with that, you need a state. That's taking resources from society to pay for a program that won't earn a profit without state protection or privilege, because if it could, it would already exist. When I say statism is barbarism, I mean that in contrast to the exchange of a firm. Trade, charity, and force. An act of state is an act of war. Statism is antisocial.